Next slide, please. Firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that most of us are joining from, the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. If you're joining us from anywhere else, please let us know in the chat. I'm Caroline Pribble, and I'm part of the committee at Electrify Boroondara. I also help organize some of our events and programs, and I'm part of the volunteer communications team. I'll be giving you a brief overview of what we'll cover tonight and what to expect. Next slide, please. As you may know, this webinar is hosted collaboratively by two local and nonpartisan community groups, Electrify Boroondara and Lighter Footprints. Electrify Boroondara has been operating for 3 years, and we host free events and programs in inner eastern Melbourne to help our community switch to clean energy and electric alternatives, reduce energy bills, and reduce carbon emissions. Lighter Footprints has been around for more than 20 years, and they are a community climate action group working to engage and educate the community and leaders about the need for climate action and showcase solutions to the climate crisis. Next slide, please. Let's have a look at what we'll cover tonight and the key focus areas. So for the first 3 areas, we're lucky to be joined by 2 Melbourne heating experts, excuse me, Tim Johnston and Drew Wormold, who will take us through all the different types of heating systems and the health impacts of these systems, and as well as the main electric heating options available for Melbourne homes. They'll also touch on key questions you can ask an installer when getting a new system and the generous government rebates available for switching. Then we'll hear from local residents Jenny, Susan, and Richard, who have recently made the switch from gas to electric. Following that, we'll have a Q&A session, which will be managed by my colleague Russell, where you can submit your questions and we'll discuss those with the speakers. Tonight, we're focusing on information for homeowners in detached or semi-detached houses. And if you're in an apartment or renting, many of the solutions and rebates discussed don't directly apply, and we hope to run a separate session for apartment owners in the future. Next, please. Our first speaker is Tim Johnston. He is the CEO and founder of Powerhouse, a purpose-driven company dedicated to helping households navigate the transition from gas to high-efficiency electric appliances. Tim brings expert knowledge of electric heating systems, including split systems, ducted solutions, and hydronic heating, and specializes in navigating the complex rebate landscape to minimize upfront costs for families. Next. And then we'll have Drew Wormold from ProTemp Air Solutions. He's an expert in residential climate solutions, specializing in split systems, ducted solutions, and hydronic heating transitions to deliver reliable, energy-efficient comfort to local homes. Next. A couple housekeeping items. For the Q&A section, we've set aside about 20 minutes for questions at the end, and we'll do our best to answer everything. To submit a question, please use the Q&A panel instead of the chat so that Russell will be able to see all the questions and manage those. You can also have a look at other people's questions, and in the Q&A panel, you can upvote those if you see one that looks interesting instead of adding the same question. If possible, we'll answer them as we go along. Otherwise, we'll dive into those after the main presentations. And also the chat is open for any other comments or reactions, so feel free to use that if you'd like. Please note this webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you a PDF of the slides within a few days after this event. And that will be an email from Humanitics. And we'll also be posting the recording on our YouTube channel. If you could please keep yourselves on mute during the presentations, that would be great. And having your video on is optional, of course. Over to Tim now, who's going to start us off with a quick reality check on what most Boroondara homes are actually running for their heating systems.
Thank you, Caroline, and thanks everyone for joining us. Great to be here tonight in my nice warm home in Balwyn. Yeah, we're going to cover lots of topics today. So we're going to try to get the level of detail right, right enough to give you enough to think about, but not too much detail that we lose people. There is quite a number of things to cover when transitioning away from gas heating to electric. And there's different nuances that apply and different types of systems. So hopefully we get the level of detail right. And as Carolyn said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. The first point I wanted to make though is this slide here, which is whatever source of heating you use, we need to be warm. And this is a topic that I'm acutely aware of. My mum is 76. She lives by herself, has lovely hydronic heating and doesn't use it because she's from that generation that would rather put three jumpers on. So I just want to make a quick point here that there are actually a number of studies which do suggest that it is actually very important to keep warm. So there are health benefits, and this study here is the Victorian Healthy Homes program run by Sustainability Victoria, which actually suggested that there was a large financial saving, mostly from the health side, by running that heater. So even though we think we're saving money sometimes by not running it and by being environmentally conscious, try not to feel too guilty about running your heating and living in a nice, cozy, warm environment. Next slide, please. Whatever source of heating you use, whether it's gas powered or hopefully electric, and hopefully that transition will continue, a good place to start is thermal efficiency. And by that, we mean the home's ability to hold on to heat. I live in a 1960s unit in Baldwin. The windows are very thin. There were lots of gaps, and there probably still are a few gaps, but we want to try and plug those gaps and take out some steps so that we're holding on to whatever heat we are using to whatever heat that we are generating in our home. And so that can start, that can go into a number of different places. It can start with small things like plugging gaps and draft proofing. A lot of things you can do DIY, but it can also scale up to double glazed windows and wall insulation and things like that. Next slide, please. This will be known to many, but I'm sure many don't know about it as well. But the Burundara Libraries actually have a wonderful resource where you can borrow these thermal imaging cameras and kits. And so you can see the camera just on the right-hand side. It's point and shoot. So when you're at night time, it doesn't really work if the temperature is the same inside as outside. But if it's a cold night like tonight, or even a very hot day in summer, you can point and shoot and see that when it's cold in winter, little areas around windows and doors might show up as blue, and these are gaps that we can fix. Warmer areas which hold on to the heat will show up as red and yellow. So that's a really good resource that is available to a number of us. Next, please. So let's talk about the different types of heating systems out there. The purpose of this is just to allow people to identify what their current heating system is. Many of us may not know, and then we can talk about, well, what may make sense to move to an electric solution. So on the left-hand side, we've got the gas ducted heating system coming up through the floor. We then also have split systems in the middle, and we have gas wall heaters down below, and the one on the right hand side is the hydronic heating system. Might be a good time to introduce Drew. Drew, what do you see in the field as the main sources of heating in the Melbourne homes that you work on?
Hi, Tim. I still find that gas ducted heating is probably the most popular. Probably 90% of the houses I go to have some form of gas ducted heating, whether it's through the ceiling or under the floor. Yeah, and
Yeah,
probably wall heaters would be probably lower down the list.
on the list. Maybe more so in apartments and units, which may sort of not need as much big heating. You might find the old gas wall heaters.
Correct. Yes.
Um,
Yep.
Yeah, yep. And so what we're going to do is we've sort of talk about moving away from each of these and what the sort of, I guess, the most logical alternatives are. The split systems, many people might recognize straight away in the middle there. They actually do heating and cooling, and they are electric. So many of us may already have them. Next slide, please. So, and before we jump in, we're going to talk about why convert from gas and why move away from gas. So there's two very clear reasons here. One is environmental. So on the right-hand side, we do have a climate issue that hopefully many acknowledge and agree that we need to address. But the other is financial as well. So the gas price continues to go up and up and up. Electricity prices do vary, but we can actually take ownership of our own electricity prices with solar and batteries. But I think it's very, very, very clear that the gas price is only going to go in one direction. And so the investment that we may make today in moving away from gas to electric may have a more immediate payback. But I think a lot of people actually underestimate that payback as well, because many underestimate how much that gas price is going to continue to increase. So yeah, two clear reasons. The environmental issue may be more relevant and may be more of a driver, but everyone likes to save money on their energy bills. Next slide, please. Drew, would you like to talk us through split systems and how they work?
Yes, so this basically slide is just for a single head split system, which I can probably go through some pros and cons of them. So as for a single head split system, would be the cheapest to install usually. So that's obviously a benefit. Most of the time, cheapest to run also, especially if you're a single person or somebody who has a small home, just trying to heat one room at a time. And for that same reason, probably the most efficient as well for cooling down one space.
And so what have we got in this photo? So the top part is the internal unit.
Correct. So that's what you'll have mounted on your wall, and then the part on the bottom of the slud there is the condenser, which you'll have most cases outside somewhere.
Yeah, and the most simple solution is what we call a back-to-back installation. So that's where the external unit is on the same wall as an internal unit. So they are kind of back-to-back with the wall in the middle. But we also do have a little bit of flexibility where we can install the internal units in different spaces. Is that right,
That's
Drew?
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the sort of distance sort of, how far would you put the internal unit from the external unit?
A lot of manufacturers vary in what they come with what's called a factory charge, so how far the indoor unit can be away from the outdoor unit from factory. Most of them, the better range is probably between 15 and 20 meters. But outside of that, you can also add refrigerant to basically accommodate the further runs. But most houses can get within that range.
Sure. And we can do them on internal walls. So where it's a wall inside the house as opposed to the external wall, but that may add a little bit of complexity and drain the needs
Correct.
for pumps through and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the main issue there would be obviously the condensation line. All of the units condensate, so they drip water. So putting them on an internal wall becomes challenging with the drain, but there are options of getting around that.
Yeah. And so there can be limitations there when, if you've got a wall that's a whole window, for example, you may not actually have enough space for the internal unit to go. So you may put it on another wall, for example. But electric split systems, they do heating and cooling. I think that's really important and easy to overlook. But for many houses, they will install split systems purely for the cooling side of things, because the heating might be gas ducted heating, like Drew touched on. And they might install a split system purely for the cooling side of things in summer, but they do actually do heating as well. So if that sounds like you, it might be a good idea just to start with switching that over to the heat mode, using it as the heating for a particular space, and seeing how that goes, and see how you like that. What I think we find, and Drew would agree, is using split systems to replace different gas heaters probably depends on the house and also the type of heating we're replacing. So as Drew touched on, if it's a gas wall heater that is designed to heat just a living room or a small area, the split system is perfect, because that is also designed to do the same thing. Where it can be a little bit more difficult is if we need multiple split systems to replace gas ducted heating throughout a whole house. Gas ducted heating obviously has vents throughout the home, and all of a sudden we might need different split systems in different rooms. And I think that's quite an interesting conversation where you may find that as soon as you need 4, 5, 6 split systems, that it starts to become hardware heavy, as I call it. There's a lot of hardware involved, and maybe an electric ducted system might make more sense. Anything to add to that, Drew, or have I covered most of that?
I think, yeah, I would agree with everything that you've said. So I think that's all, yeah, goes
Yeah.
well.
And from a cost point of view, Drew, because we will talk about electric ducted heating in a couple of slides, but from a cost point of view, do you find that if it's three, four, five, six split systems, it actually starts to become more expensive than electric ducted heating, or where do you find the tipping point is?
Yeah, definitely. I think again, it depends on obviously the size of the house, the size of the ducted system, but yeah, most of the time, if it's above three, so probably from four onwards, I would start to consider both options to which one would be more beneficial for the homeowner.
Sure. And Drew did touch on the key benefit of a split system, and there is data from Sustainability Victoria and different sources that support this, is that individual split systems for different rooms is definitely the cheapest way to heat your home. So there are some drawbacks, the hallways, the bathrooms, the laundry that may have vents for the ducted system, and if we're replacing it with splits, you may find those areas aren't as well covered because it's a lot easier to put in a vent for a ducted system than it is to put in a split system for a bathroom. But it definitely is the cheapest way to heat and cool your home. Next slide, please. Drew, talk to us about multis.
Yes, so very similar to obviously just the standard split system, but like it's explained here, multiple heads for one condenser, so larger capacity. So usually the multi-head condenser units can obviously have a larger capacity and more indoor units connected to them. Um, it's good again, like I said, for larger homes, people who are looking to heat or cool more than just the one space, the entire homes, or particularly multiple bedrooms. It depends on the layout of the house, but that's the main benefit of having multi-heads.
Yep. Less hardware, one outdoor unit, multiple indoor units. And I think, Drew, you touched on it there. If you've got, say, three bedrooms in a row down the side of a house, multis can work
Yep.
really well for that. Again, you can run the refrigerant and the indoor unit up to a certain distance, but do you find that if it goes beyond that distance, Drew, it's sort of, or even larger distances, the performance starts to drop a little bit? Is that one of the downsides?
The performance usually keeps up, obviously with the right refrigerant charge and the right installation. I think the efficiency definitely suffers a little. The harder that the compressor has to work to pump the refrigerant to the further runs, obviously the unit is working a little harder. But as far as performance, if installed correctly, it usually doesn't suffer too much.
And I should also mention one of the things we like about reverse cycle heat pumps, and this is a little fun fact for everyone. In the rest of the world, you might hear about heat pump technology, and a heat pump generally means a split system, pumping heat from one spot to another throughout the rest of the world. In Australia, we love to call them splitties because we call things differently, but they are actually heat pumps if you follow sort of global trends. But one of the things we love about heat pumps and splitties is that they are super efficient. So again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but there is a coefficient of performance which measures the amount of energy in versus the amount of energy out. Whereas with gas systems, when we're burning gas, there's always going to be loss because you can't trap and use all of that heat that is produced. With split systems and heat pumps and even heat pumps for hydronic and ducted systems, which we'll talk about later, you do actually get two, three, $4 worth of energy out for $1 spent on energy in. Similar to heat pump hot water, which we've talked about previously with electrified Burundara and lighter footprints. So that is one of the reasons, or the main reason why we really like these, why they're so efficient and so cheap to run. Next slide, please. Ducted systems, Drew. So we talked about larger houses, ducted being very common throughout Melbourne. A lot of households and homeowners love that sort of whole house warmth. What do we need to consider if we are looking at electric ducted?
As far as considerations go, the space is usually the biggest factor as to whether or not it's achievable. Obviously, as you can see here in the first slide on the left-hand side there, the units are quite a substantial amount larger than a standard gas ducted heater. We do need to put them in most cases under the floor, so you will need quite a large amount of space. So usually the first thing that we would check for a consideration is, can we fit the unit under the floor? Is it going to have enough space?
And talk to me about ducts as well.
Yep. So there's different types of ducts. So usually with most gas ducted heaters, they could be anywhere from R0.6 to R1 grade ducting. Most systems that we put in that are reverse cycle heat pumps will be R1.5. So basically, that just means that it's a better insulated duct to help keep the air inside warm or cold.
Sure. And so if we already have a gas ducted system, can we plug in? Is it as easy as just going here, here's the electric system, plug into the existing ductwork, or how does that work?
Not really. So most of the standard reverse cycle systems will need all the ducting replaced. There is, as you would know, Tim, the one system on the market, which is the Dominator, which is pretty much as close as you could get to reusing all of the existing. You can pretty much use, say, 90% of the existing ducting. There are some limitations to things that we have to change, which is usually sort of the first bit of supply duct, and also the return air ducting needs to be increased. But otherwise, most other instances, the ducting needs to be removed.
And is that difficult, expensive, and like when would we do it? Would we do it in sort of every circumstance, or if I've got sort of say new ducks that are only 3 years old, would you look more towards that Braemar Dominator, or is it really just a sort of a case by case?
Yeah, so it's case by case for sure. We definitely do an inspection on every single house. So we'll get under the floor or whether it be in the ceiling, and we'll have a look at the current ducting setup. We'll ask the homeowners how they find the ducting. So do they find that the house heats evenly? Do they find that there's spots that don't? They're generally questions that we'll ask throughout the site inspection. And then we'll make up our minds from there what's going to be the best fit for the customer's wants and for what they currently have.
I think yeah, my understanding is if your ducts are 30 years old, 20 years old, it's probably time for an upgrade anyway. Uh,
Definitely, yeah.
one of my friends, he got his house re-stumped about 5 years ago, and it turned out that one of his ducts was just not connected to the vent in this particular corner of the house. And when that happened, they said, "Oh, we always wondered why that room was colder than all the others because it was just blowing hot air out underneath the house." So that ductwork, particularly if it's old, and particularly if it's thin and needs a bit of an update, it sounds like that could be a good. We're not really losing by upgrading the ductwork anyway.
Definitely not. It's a vital part of how the system operates. So I often think it's quite underrated in the idea process of getting it all done. If you have poor ducting or ducting, like you said, that's disconnected, or there's sections that are squashed, there's sections that have lost all their insulation. You could put the best unit on the market and have it installed perfectly. And if you're connecting back to existing ductwork that is of poor quality, the whole system is going to work poorly, and you're going to have an inefficient system that still doesn't work great.
Talk to me about zoning.
Zoning, yes. Zoning is also great, and I think mostly important, especially if you have a larger house. The larger the home, usually the more important I think it is. Basically, zoning just means that there's little motors basically that sit inside the ductwork, and you can open and close certain areas of the house. So, for example, you would only heat, if you're in the living area during the day, you could have all the bedrooms and everything zoned off, which means that they're turned off, and just have that one space running so you're not wasting heat. It helps you achieve the temperature obviously a lot quicker because you're just heating that one space that you require. So yeah, like I said, with larger houses and many living spaces, I think zoning's quite important.
Yeah, and I think this is where this is actually the photos of my system in the unit in Bourne that I mentioned, and it's relatively new, installed by Drew a couple of months ago, and we absolutely love it. And I think one of the things that I probably underestimated before going through the exercise myself is how many variables that go into ducted solutions. So, if a room is smaller, does that need its own zone? The capacity of the units. So you can't actually wind down the unit just to heat one room because you've got this huge unit and you're just heating this tiny room. That may not make sense. So you might need to have a base zone, I guess, to call it, which was our living and kitchen room, which in our case is always on. And then we have a couple of different bedrooms which are zoned separately so we can toggle them as we need. But that also comes back to the size of the system you put in, making sure that fits with the house, making sure it's not too small but not too large. Running costs for ducted electric, also known as reverse cycle heating and cooling, tends to be about 25 to 50% of the cost of the gas ducted equivalent. Again, I have a very firm, which I think is a well backed view that that is only going to get bigger, that difference, because of the gas price. And also, again, coming back to if you do have solar and batteries and you can run this effectively at zero marginal cost through your own power plant on top of your roof and maybe in your garage, you can run it very, very cheaply indeed. So they're not as cheap to run as split systems because they tend to be larger units and we're heating larger areas. There is also a little bit of inefficiency with the duct work because heat and cooling you're going to have small losses when you're transferring heat and cooling from one spot to another, but definitely cheaper than the gas ducted counterparts. Next slide, please. Actually, sorry, could you just go back one more step, one more point? Drew, versus underground ducted heating versus through the floor. Is there a better one? Do you see one more common than the other? If we already have underfloor, is there much point going through the roof, or do we just sort of swap out what we already have?
Yeah, I think in most cases we tend to just swap out with what we have. So if you already have heating or cooling, whatever it might be, coming through your floor, I think that in most cases we will try to just do the same thing. Otherwise, to go and put new holes in the ceiling, then you're left with holes in the floor that you've got to try and patch up and do things with. So most cases we will try swap as close to like for like as possible.
And what if we've got gas ducted heating with evaporative cooling? So you've already got the double holes.
Yep.
Can we use the ductwork for evaporative cooling? Is that suitable for, if that's fairly new and in good condition?
Yeah, no, evaporative ducting is much larger than what's required for reverse cycle. So usually it's quite close to heating ductwork, but it's miles apart from the evaporative. So yeah, generally the evaporative ducting is not suitable for any sort of reverse cycle heat pump.
And do your customers, if we put in a reverse cycle electric solution under the floor, which does heating and cooling, do your customers then tend to get rid of the evaporative cooling, or they leave it there because they might use it one day, or they use both, or?
It's probably split down the middle. So some people will keep it in there. Most of the time, if we're putting a system under the floor and they have it in the ceiling, they'll just leave it. And I would say it's probably the opposite if we're putting it in the ceiling. Most of the time, if we put it in the ceiling, they'll get rid of it. There's a lot of the times we'll need the space as well. So if there's already evaporative cooling in the roof, again with quite large ducts, we'll often need that removed to fit in all the new stuff. But in
And
saying they also do sometimes leave it, and if it's a more mild day where they don't need a lot of cooling, sometimes they'll still run their evaporative systems.
And if we have really hard to access areas of the house, say there's just no access, or there might be, I think I've seen one house which was half on stumps and half a slab, and it had ductwork through the slab. Are there any sort of solutions there, or is it again sort of case by case basis for those?
Yeah, again, it's case by case usually. Sometimes in the worst case scenario, we might run the ducting as far as we can possibly get it. So we might run all the new ducting sort of as close to humanly possible as we can. And then sometimes if there's a spot where you physically cannot get into, if as long as the ducting's in decent condition and everything's still connected and there's no issues there, we will sometimes join back onto that duct for that last little, whether it be a meter or two or whatever the situation is. But again, it's all base by base, sorry, case by case. We would have a look at the job and make a decision from there.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Let's talk about hydronic heating, and this is a common one in Boroondara. I certainly get lots of customers coming to me in the Boroondara area saying that we have gas hydronic heating and what are the electric equivalents. So the electric equivalent is heat pump hydronic, which I touched on before. Hydronic heating is a wonderful heat. As I mentioned, my mum, my dear mother, she has it in her home, excuse me, and it is a beautiful heat. It doesn't make any noise. It's just nice and toasty warm, and it's all been gas up until recently. Heat pump hydronic does have some nuances to it, and Richard a little bit later on is going to go through his experience moving away from gas hydronic to heat pump. A couple of points to note about that. It can be done, so that's great. We like that. Another point is that the new heat pump systems are quite large, so they do take up quite a lot of space. And the other point there is that they are quite expensive as well. So for the two reasons to move from gas to Electric, we talked about the financial reasons and the environmental reasons. That one's probably more environmentally driven. The financial is probably a little bit harder because of the upfront investment. But again, who knows? Rising gas prices, the paybacks on heat pump hydronic, I'm sure it's a matter of time before they make financial sense as well. Russell also suggested that we may do a separate session on hydronic heat pump hydronic and moving away to a heat pump hydronic from gas, because it is a bit of a nuance and there's lots of different variables. Russell, did you want to say anything to that?
I would like to take a poll, so probably in the chat, if people could just register their interest, and if we've got say 20 or so people who are specifically interested in learning the intricacies of electrifying their hydronics, we'll aim to run another hydronic specific workshop. But yeah, let's gauge the interest, please.
Next slide, please. So just to expand on that a little bit more. So on the left-hand side, we have a gas boiler for a hydronic system. On the right-hand side, it's an image of a hydronic heat pump. So you can see it's a lot larger, often with a buffer tank as well. So particularly in homes that may not have the space, it might be a little bit difficult. But the good news is it certainly can be done. Another question that we get commonly is, can we do heat pump hydronic and have the same system as that we use to heat the water for our home? And that can be done, but it also can't be done. It can be done in theory, but in practice, it's not done much because for a variety of reasons that I won't go into, but we can cover on that separate seminar. Next slide, please. Electric and portable wall heaters. So I think this is probably one that's a little bit underplayed. I think there's definitely a case for electric portable heaters. Some of the energy efficiency purists don't like them because they're not as efficient as heat pump technology, which powers the split systems and the electric ducted that we talked about. But I think they definitely have a place in certain circumstances, and that might be where we're just heating a bedroom to take the chill off in the air. It might be where we have a bedroom where guests come from time to time, and we don't need heating 24/7 or the ability to heat or cool 24/7. There are a number of different ways that we can use electric portable systems. The one on the right, that's actually a fairly new product development that I've saw recently, which is basically a hydronic electric radiator, which can plug into a 10 amp power point and give that hydronic heating rather than having a large system everywhere. You don't want to use these 24/7. If you do, you'll notice it on the bills. They will be very expensive, and they're obviously quite compact systems, so we're probably not going to use them to heat large living rooms and open spaces. But again, that bedroom, guest bedroom, we used to, I've got two young kids for both girls as they were sleeping in their junior years, just to keep their rooms nice and warm, particularly while they were younger. We used to run a portable heater overnight on 16 degrees or something just to keep the chill at bay. Now they can use their blankets and their doonas and whatnot. So a portable heater, again, can be put away during summer. You're not going to need it, so you've got that space, and we don't need a whole split system on the wall. I guess the downside though is they don't do the cooling side of things. So that's where obviously a split system and reverse cycle can do both. Next slide, please. Fireplaces. So this is a really interesting one, which comes up often with customers that love their gas log fireplace, or dare I say, they're even wood fireplace. Again, electric options are available. Some of them are terrible, but some of them are fantastic. So I actually did a tour of Swan Street, Richmond, a number of years ago, and went into the different stores. And on more than one occasion, I was pointing at an electric fireplace and asking the salesperson, "Is that electric or is that gas?" Because I couldn't actually tell. So electric options are available. They don't put out a huge amount of heat, not as much as gas, but they can look pretty good. And if that's something that you're looking to replace, I definitely encourage looking at the different stores. I think the innovation will continue to improve things in that department as well, to give us that nice cozy feeling in winter. Next slide, please. Rebates. So there are some very generous rebates for moving from gas heating or inefficient heating to efficient heating. So this comes under the Victorian Energy Upgrades Program, the VEU, and it does make, or it can make, quite a large difference to making this shift. The general premise of the program is we need to put something in and we need to take something out. And the more we put in, and the more we take out, the more the amount of rebates. So if we run through a couple of examples, if we're removing one small gas wall heater and we're putting in a small individual split system, you'll get a little bit of rebate, but not a huge amount. If we're taking out a gas ducted system and putting in a electric ducted system, the rebates are going to be significant, many thousands of dollars. Obviously, though, the more you put in, the more it's going to cost. So there's no such thing as a free lunch with the rebate side of things. But it's definitely something that when you're speaking to installers, you absolutely need to talk about. I have heard cases where some installers don't even offer the rebates, which it is free money in a way. So that's definitely something we want to address. And there is a little bit of nuance to it. So one example I'm going to talk through is multis. If we put in 3 individual split systems in 3 separate rooms, they're treated as 3 separate systems. And if we're taking out a gas ducted system, we only actually get the rebates on one of those split systems that we're putting in. If we, however, put in a multi-system, it actually is deemed to be one larger unit, because that's going to power all 3 separate split systems. And that's going to be one larger system going in and that gas ducted system going out. And so there are some nuances there that you want to talk about through the installer, where using a multi may be more economical. But again, there are some limitations which Drew talked about with multi. So it doesn't necessarily mean you should go that way, but we do want to talk through all the different examples. There are some cases where you might get a tiny amount of rebates. If we're installing a new split system to replace an old split system, you might get $150, $200 back. Again, if you're looking to do it, you might as well look into it, but it's not going to be as significant as definitely removing the gas ducted, which is the large one, or putting in electric ducted as again the large one going in. Drew, did I miss anything there? Anything to add?
No, I think it was pretty good. I think also one thing to look out for would be installers who are quoting you things just based on rebate amount.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to add to that a little bit? Large systems that are probably perhaps too large?
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that we've found that are out there that are basically just trying to quote the largest possible system to get the highest amount of rebate, which will often bring their installation costs down quite a lot because they're getting a substantial rebate. But often it is not sized correctly for the home. It's not going to perform well. It's not going to be efficient. So you should definitely get something sized for your house rather than for the largest rebate.
Yeah, and I think the VU is cracking down on it as well. I think I saw an update last week or this week saying that they're not going to offer rebates on systems that are too large, or I don't have all the detail in front of me, obviously, but I think that will hopefully be tidied up a little bit. The other thing to mention with rebates is it is a state rebate from the Victorian government, and things might change in November with an upcoming election. So watch this space on the rebate side of things. And last point, again on the rebates as well, I do get a number of customers coming to me saying, oh, how much do we get for this rebate and how much do we get for that rebate if we do this, that, and the other? The key number really is the total price you pay. So whilst people like to get things for free, it's not about choosing a system that does give you the biggest amount of rebate. It's about that final price, and as Drew said, a suitable system that's going to serve you well. Next slide, please. So yeah, just going over a bit of a recap of what we've sort of discussed so far. Whatever heating source you use, and we hope that that's going to be electric or certainly move towards electric, we need to stay warm, particularly in Melbourne houses, which are typically not very well insulated. I used to live with a guy who used to live in London, and he said he's never been so cold as in the place that we were living in Melbourne because of the way they used to be built. So, but don't feel guilty turning on the heater, whichever sort of heater it is, because we want to keep warm. It's better for our health in a variety of different ways. Start with thermal efficiency. So plug those gaps, put the door sausage along the bottom to stop the drafts coming in. Roof insulation is an absolute must. If you don't have roof insulation, your money's just going straight through your roof. Underfloor and wall insulations, double glazing, that might be a little bit harder depending on how long you plan to be in the home and whatnot. But there are a lot of DIY things that you can do with the thermal imaging camera for the local library to help identify those gaps and then plug them. Gas is expensive and it's getting more expensive. Options for moving off gas, split systems typically suited for smaller homes, smaller spaces, ducted for larger homes where you want that full whole house warmth, and portable heaters, they do have their place as well. Next slide, please. Choosing stores. Russell, were you going to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I thought I'd say a few words here and maybe bounce some of these thoughts around with Tim and Drew, rather than asking these guys who you should choose, because of course their answer is going to be them, and we wouldn't disagree with that. But there's some pretty straightforward logic. If someone's trying to squeeze you to sign a deal, or something just looks too good to be true, walk or run. Make sure that there's a brand that you know, or at least has been around in Australia for a while. There are a lot of new brands coming in from Asia at the moment. Some of them are pretty good, but they may not have the best supply chain. So you may not be able to get parts when something breaks. So try and stick with one of the big brands that's been around, a Daikin, a Fujitsu, or Mitsubishi, those sort of guys who've been around for a while. Those big manufacturers often endorse specific supply, so that's always a good measure. If you say were to go to the Mitsubishi or the Daikin site and look for endorsed installers, then that might give you an indication as well. From our perspective, it's also good to find someone whose business is actually about electrification, rather than someone who still makes most of their money by installing gas kit. So someone who's absolutely focused on electrification, and make sure that you've got a well written out, well explained quote, and the warranty is absolutely clear as to what you get. Particularly when it comes to split systems, you might see some of the big high street retailers who offer split systems that are too good to refuse, but they're really based on turning over volume, so you probably wouldn't get a great installation, and you may end up not getting a system that's appropriately dimensioned for your house, your room, etc. So I always find it's better to go to a specialist installer and let him recommend the size and the type of the box that suits you. And of course, talk to your neighbours and find out what they've learnt, and where they like, what products and installers they like. Which is a lovely segue to. Oh, sorry. Let's just get Tim and Drew to comment on any of those points.
Yeah, I think they're all great points. I think you can't really beat a referral that's come from somebody whose house you've worked at and is happy with the system you've put in. I believe that's the best sort of way of judging if it's going to be a good system, because if they're happy, generally the next person will be also.
Yep. Thanks, Tim. And that was a really nice segue, because next slide we're going to have some of our local people, your neighbours, who have been through the process of electrifying their heating, to tell you their story. So we've got Jenny, who's going to talk about transitioning to a household with several split systems, and Susan, who will talk about her electric ducted system. And then Richard will talk about his electric hydronic system. So Jenny's one of the lucky people who's got a foot in both camps. She's both electrified Gurundara and lighter footprints, and I'll let her talk about her story.
Okay, can I have the next slide, please? It's been 8 years. We've been working through going from gas, underfloor gas ducted central heating to multiple split systems. So that's a picture of our house. Next picture, please. As you can see, it's a weatherboard. It was built in 1929 and it was built with 3 chimneys. So in those days, Tim, I'm sure there were plenty of chilblains and cold people. We were lucky in 1997, we put on a second story, 2 bedrooms upstairs in the back living area. And at that stage, we extended the existing gas central heating for the new back area. And we didn't put any heating upstairs. We did have a glow lamp for the bathroom, but no heating. And my sons tell me it was very cold. But they survived, no chilblains. Next picture, please. There we go. We muddled along with our gas central heating. And then in 2015, after being to lots of lighter footprints talks, thought I better update the ceiling insulation. We put in some secondary glazing and did a lot of draft proofing, and that made a big difference to the comfort of our home. And then 2018, I decided that, climate change was here to stay. I was sick of having those days we just endured the heat. So we put a split system in the back kitchen, family living room, and one in the upstairs bedroom. And we use that for cooling. Then in 2020, still it's hot, we still got climate change. We put a split system in our main bedroom. Next picture, please. Slide. So there's my brag board. Very pleased to show. Look, no gas meter, heat pump hot water, Tim, battery, inverter, and a little split system for our main bedroom. But that's because it's been a bit higgledy-piggledy. I guess it hasn't been that planned, but there it is. Next picture, please. So in 2024, we decided to renovate our downstairs bathroom, but it wasn't very wise as we got older to have to be able to step over into the bath. So we renovated the bathroom, but that meant we were popping the bathroom out a little bit. So we had to move the external gas heater. Why are we moving a gas 30-year-old heater? So that's when we said, okay, let gas central heating be gone. We put in a final multi-split for the remaining bedrooms that didn't have it. And really, since the winter of 2022, we had been using the split system mainly in the back room for heating, because there was a couple of those COVID winters when we were running the gas central heating. It was pretty pricey. So now we've got, it's probably not very pretty, Drew and Tim, but we've got 5 external condensers and 8 internal heads. Next picture, please. So the pros, this is a lovely pro. We have no heating bills because we've got a 9 kilowatt battery or a bit more with the solar and plus the 3 free hours of power. It's enough to run our split systems. And it suits us as empty nesters. We don't need to heat the unused bedrooms. Look, it's been a staggered cost as we've switched over the years, but we did get the VEU for the final one when they took away the gas clunker, and we're not paying a gas connection bill. The cons, it is a bit, you walk from a warm area to a cold area, and the bathroom haven't really solved. So it's not that beautiful, luxurious, even temperature throughout the house. But hey, we're not got any energy bills, so that's to like. We're not popping CO2 in the atmosphere. That's a lot to like. And if I could just have the little controls that I could just talk to and say, turn on, turn off, rather than trying to work out how to program, it would be perfect. So that's our story. Thanks. Next person, I think it might be.
Is it straight over to me?
It's straight to you, Susan.
Excellent.
You can introduce yourself, or I can for you.
Well, that's actually not me on the picture, but looks pretty similar, although I didn't wear the bright earrings, obviously. But that's enough of an introduction. Let's go. This is not it, but this is the right slide. But I was going to say we've lived in, not this box, but in a weatherboard 4-bedroom, 150-year-old Victorian house for about 17 years. It came with a ducted heating system, which worked very well, but was gas. It was not this one, but very similar to this one. I couldn't find a slide of our old system. And when I look back on it, different people, this was probably a good 10 years ago, different people have different motivations for wanting to electrify. For me, it was particularly that I didn't want to be consuming fossil fuels and adding to the climate crisis. My husband agreed. He also was quite motivated by the idea of decreasing our heating bills with 3 growing young men in our house. That was significant. But swapping out a full gas ducted heating system felt sort of overwhelmingly large at the beginning of our sort of journey. So I should say the first thing we did was a major renovation about 15 years ago, which involved replacing all of the windows because they'd been installed in the 1960s. They had this wood panel in the middle of them. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but they were terribly inefficient. And we replaced all the windows with double glazed windows. That helped a lot. We also put in good insulation. So in the meantime, next slide, please. I started buying these little oil-filled heaters and basically trying to talk my husband and 3 sons out of turning on our gas ducted heating system. And we did that for quite a long time, which was probably not that efficient for the size of our house. But again, the ducted heating system, it felt big and I wasn't sure what to do. We weren't sure what to do. I'm a big picture thinker and I couldn't figure it out. So we did other things first, basically. In 2017 we got solar panels. And then our gas hot water died, and we replaced it with, next slide, please, this lovely heat pump system, which was fantastic and is fantastic, but it didn't solve our heating issue. But meanwhile, those little heaters were just working hard in the winters. And I started started researching the possibility of getting split systems, splitties, I hadn't heard that word. Next slide, please. So thinking, would we put one of these in each of our rooms around the house? But basically, Daryl and I couldn't agree on what we wanted to do. I was worried sort of about the visual impact of these in every room. And to be honest, I just didn't like heat coming at me from above, which was a little thing, but it sort of just when we were all uncertain, it kept us from making a good decision. So we put it off a bit longer. And in the meantime, we bought a battery, which was fantastic. And a few years later, we bought an EV. But eventually, about two years ago, we realized we had to do something about our gas ducted heating. We were freezing in the winters, trying not to use it. I was running and trying to turn it off when the kids were turning it on. And we just wanted to be done with gas. And so it was about that time that I heard that Braemar had come out with a new product called a Dominator series. Next slide, which looked great and uses all electric reverse cycle technology. It connects directly to the existing duct system, although as we've heard, that may mean needing to be replaced. But this was an option that might allow us basically to use what we already had, an underfloor ducted heating system. And that caught my attention. It really appealed to me. We were told it might not work well with the cooling necessarily, but we weren't interested in the cooling, to be honest. We'd never really had a cooling system in our house. We have one split system in the back room, and I don't know, we don't mind being hot, I guess. But the idea that this could work for us was very, very exciting. So within a few months, we had 3 different installers out to have a look and to give us a quote. And they said that the air intake, as you've already heard from Tim, underneath the controller would need to be enlarged a bit because the volume of air produced is somewhat larger than gas ducted heating. Next slide, you can see actually this is our picture of it. This is a bit of a spoiler alert. Yes, we did go with this system. This is the new air return. It's under the controller, which you can see right there. It's maybe 30% larger, but it's fine. It was not a big deal. This is what it looks like after the installation. So the installers in our case did obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but importantly, they did check the quality of our existing ducts. They were very concerned about that or interested in that. But they felt that our old ducts were fine if we were willing to, if we wanted, I mean, they would have replaced them as well if we'd said to, but they said they didn't think we needed to, and so we didn't. We're probably unusual in that. I haven't met too many other people who've gone that way. So here in the next slide are our 2, this is our external unit. It's pretty similar to the old unit, a little bit bigger. It doesn't take up too much space. Again, a bit like Jenny, we didn't organize this necessarily because we did it a bit higgledy-piggledy, but I sort of think most of us do this a bit higgledy-piggledy, and that's okay. It's fine. It fits where the other one was. And the next slide shows that these are the other part of it, and our very helpful golden retriever, who's always where you don't need her. But the installation itself took about 4 hours. They turned it on. it made sort of a whooshing noise, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, it's so loud!" And that was it. It went quiet, and never really heard it again. I think it's quieter than our ducted heating, but it's probably the same. This is our second winter, and I have to say, we love it. And one of the benefits is that we had very low expectations for the cooling component because we weren't getting it for the cooling. But for us, in fact, we even forgot about it. And one hot day last summer, our son said, "Can't we turn this system on for the cooling?" And we couldn't believe how well it worked. So it's been a great decision for us. Maybe not for everybody, but we have loved the Dominator, and in our case, the existing ducts have worked. I wish I'd done it years before. And I think I hand over, or back to you, Russell.
Terrific. Thanks, Susan. And now here's Richard. And I understand, Richard, that this might be one of the few times that you've seen in a suit. So congratulations, the caricature.
Yeah, it's proof that AI is useless because there's no way I would have a tie and a suit on. Yeah, well, hi everyone. What a fantastic seminar. Next slide, get away from that picture as quickly as possible. So we live just over the river from Boroondara in Richmond, though I did grow up in South Camberwell South. And you might notice my last name is somewhat similar to Jenny's. She is my sister-in-law. So for those who are wondering about that. So we live in Richmond, just near Melbourne Girls College, if you know that area. In the winter of 2023, the boiler for our hydronic system, so hydronic heating system that you heard Tim referring to, that his mum has, that the boiler failed after only 11 years. So I'm a bit jealous of Jenny's 30. So we got a quote for putting a new gas boiler in to heat the water that pumps around through the hydronic radiators, and that was $5,000 or $6,000 ish. But we just couldn't bring ourselves to install a gas product, thinking, okay, if we did this, it's going to be around for a very, very long time. So we thought we might just go all electric, and the way we did it is that we found a consultant. I just looked in Renew magazine and read a few articles about various people and came across a consultant who looked like they knew what they were talking about. And they assessed the house in quite some detail to help us make the right decisions. Next, please. So, yeah, in 2023, that you can see the radiator there. That we've got, I forget how many, 9 rooms I think have got radiators in them, but the house is a 1930s brick house with an extension in 2010. There are lots of air leaks and poor insulation in the old part of the house. Amazingly enough, there were a lot of air leaks in the 2010 extension. And if anyone's ever thinks they've got air leaks, doing a blower door test is just an amazing thing to do, where they pump the air out of your house and you can walk around and feel where the breezes are coming in. And it's incredible where they get in. Behind the toilet, for example, just the air was just billowing through. Anyway, the new extension of the house, the 2010 extension's got better thermal performance. We had the gas stove. We had solar hot water, which was gas boosted, the old tube system sitting on the roof. 5 adult occupants, Jefferson the Greyhound, you can see there. We did not at this point have solar panels or a battery. And although we had been keen to get them, we'd struggled because of our roof and orientation, and also the heritage issues which affect us in City of Yarra as well as in Boroondara. Next one, please. So we bit the bullet and simply decided, for reasons probably climate related more than anything, that we just did not want to put in any more gas appliances, and so we made the decision to switch everything over at that point. The price, I actually was trawling through documents. I couldn't actually find how much we paid, but I'm pretty sure it was around 30K for the hydronic heat pump. You can see that's the bottom heat pump in that picture. It's quite big. I've put the dimensions there. You can look it up online if you like. We did not have to change the radiators, which is very helpful. If you have that would add extra cost if you had to go room by room and expand the radiators. What the consultant said to us was that we might find that it's not doing quite the same job as what the gas powered system did. It won't kick out quite as much heat. That's partly because the water isn't at such a high temperature. But if we were prepared to just perhaps turn it on a bit earlier, then it would probably do a pretty reasonable job, and we wouldn't have to go changing radiators around. We also added 3 split systems. We'd never had cooling in the house, so we thought maybe that would be an advantage, especially upstairs. Next one, please. So our experience with it is that we love the hydronic, and we loved the heat that came out of it when it was gas, and we still find that it does a very good job of heating the house. We do have to sort of turn it on a bit earlier than and give it a bit of a run up, because it doesn't have quite the same sort of turbo capacity as what the gas did. But with the thermostat, you can just I can just turn it on, and it just takes a little while. We don't have, by the way, I think this was on a previous slide, we don't have any kind of remote system for turning it on, and that would actually be quite handy. The split systems, we do have a thing, so it's on the phone. You just open the app, hit on, and they'll go on. I can turn them on in any room in the house. We've also gone for solar panels. That's the back of the house, because we're not allowed to have them on the front, and up to the right you can't see it, but they're on top of the extension up there. And we've only got a small battery compared to Jenny's battery, and of course we have 5 adults in the house, so we tend to find that we run through our battery on a cold evening. We also converted the stove to electric. We converted the water to electric, so pretty much everything's running on electric now. And I've put in there how many kilowatt hours average for the last month. We also have a electric vehicle now, and that it has to be added into the load, and this makes it a little bit difficult to compare. How much were we paying for gas before, and petrol, and so on and so forth, and how much are we paying for electricity now? But I think, as Tim said, if you're doing it purely on a financial basis, it might be difficult to make it stack up. But if you're able to do it, and you want to hang on to your hydronic, or you like the idea of hydronic, it's a really lovely heat, and it really works quite well, and we would definitely do it again. And we're currently thinking that we might expand our battery, and if the rules change in Yarra to allow us to have panels on the front of the house, which is the north-facing part, we might do that as well, and then that would give us enough to run through the day in winter without a problem. And that's it.
Thanks, Richard. That was good. That actually accidentally worked out perfectly, because we've had lots of interest. I think about 25 of you have said, yes, let's do a hydronic webinar. And I think, Richard, you just raised a couple of the things that I would usually tell people about hydronic. So maybe, Tim, if you come off mute, we have a bit of a discussion. I think a lot of people have asked about can they reuse the hydronic panels, and the answer is quite often yes. As Richard said, the heat of the water that comes out of the an electric equivalent of a boiler is maybe 10, 15, 20 degrees cooler. It's still nice and warm, but you need to pump more water in to get the same heat out of the radiator. So one of the things I recommend is if you're thinking about going off gas onto electric hydronic, try turning down your the thermostat on your hydronic down to maybe 60 or 55 degrees and see whether that actually has much impact on the comfort in your house. Because if you can run your gas boiler at about 55 or 60 degrees, you can almost definitely electrify that system without needing to change radiators. So I think there's enough interest that we will aim to get some hydronic expertise in, and we'll have a hydronic webinar sometime in the future. So watch this space. We'll grab all of your names from that have said yes in the chat, and we will be back in touch with you at some point. Quite a few things going on at the moment, so it may not be in the short term. So if I can just summarise some of the questions, and I think there's a few which Drew can probably jump in. Peter has had some issues with duct leaks. Drew, I don't know whether you saw that in the Q&A.
Yep.
And I think that's probably because the air coming out of an electric ducted system is cooler, you need to push more of it around, which is why you need bigger ducts. So if your ducts have been underdimensioned, they're going to be pushed a little bit harder.
Yeah, there could be a multitude of reasons why that is. Obviously, without seeing the installation, it's hard to comment on where is getting the leakage. But with a system that's installed correctly and sized correctly, you shouldn't have too much issue on that end.
Yep.
If at all.
Thanks. There's also been a lot of interesting discussion about electric and oil panels compared with hydronic panels. At what point or how big would you think a house is that you could afford to run with a handful of electric or oil panels before you just say, hey, no, that's getting too crazy. You should have a central system one way or another. Tim, that might be something that you might want to cover.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend running a whole house on portable electric heaters. I think the bills will be enormous. They're not really designed for that. They're designed for small spaces. The example I used before was if you've got a large living room or open planned kitchen living area, your portable heater is probably going to be ineffective and certainly inefficient. Whether you then go hydronic, which will do the whole home, there's a sort of retrofit question there, and there are sort of space and a number of other issues that need to be taken into account. So you might look at all the other sort of systems we talked about as well.
Yep. I'm a big fan for heating the person rather than heating the room. I'm sitting talking to you with my feet on I'll even show it to you, on a little electric blanket that's about this big, which runs for about 15 watts and sits under and keeps my feet nice and toasty warm. And I don't have to heat this little room that I'm in, because all I need to do is keep my feet warm and I'm okay. We've got other people who are very happy using small infrared heaters, which again are very good at heating the person, not heating a room. So I think it's a matter of making sure you've got the right balance. Heat the room or heat the house when that's appropriate. But if it's only one person, if it's only their feet that's cold, don't heat the whole bloody house. What else have we got? Michelle was asking about multiple return ducts for ducted heating. Drew, is that Is that a thing? I'm assuming that's a large house where maybe with different zones, a single return duct doesn't make a lot of sense or doesn't work so efficiently.
Yeah, again, it's very much system based, so what size system, but the general thing is with reverse cycle systems that any of the systems are going to be quite a substantial amount larger of a return air grill or duct than what they have currently. And much of the larger systems will have twin ducts, which may mean that you need to have two return air grills. Often we will try and combine those two ducts into one large duct and still make one large return air grill. But yeah, again, they're both sort of options that we would go on a case by case basis for what suits the house the best and what room we have available.
So if you're zoning, if you've got, say, two different zones at opposite ends of the house, would it make sense in that case to have two different returns?
Yep. Yeah, usually if we have, like, let's say a daytime and a nighttime zoning situation where the return air might be in the living space, I think in that sense it would be good to have a return air, whether it's in the hallway off the bedrooms or somewhere on the bedroom side, just so that it's still drawing conditioned air from that space. But again, every layout's different. How we design the return air locations as well as the supply air grills is very much differentiates quite substantially from each house.
Right. Okay. Michelle, can you give us a thumbs up if that's actually answered your question? I've paraphrased that correctly. In the meantime, oh, good on you. Thanks, Michelle. Jackie was asking about installing on a bulkhead and the aesthetics about that. I don't know, can you see that question and maybe interpret it better than I can, Drew or Tim? There's also a question about split systems blowing out hot air, but cooling you by the time it gets to you. So that's a common thing that I hear about split systems is if you're sitting under them and they end up seeming like they're blowing cold air by the time it gets to you, and is not as comfortable as what we've been used to with ducted or hydronics.
Yeah, so the split systems can sometimes feel drafty. The air is never actually cold. It can just sometimes feel close to ambient by the time it gets to you. Uh, I usually recommend to people if they're getting drafts like that from a split system to try and potentially manipulate the airflow in a different direction. So maybe have the louvers tilted down so that the air's blowing more down, or maybe even up if it's on cooling mode. Just try and have it so you're not in direct view basically of the airflow, which should try and help the amount of cold drafts that you feel.
Right. Okay.
And the other
Sorry.
question in regards to the bulkhead, there are systems that are designed to go inside bulkheads.
Yeah.
They basically are a split system, but they just are in behind a bulkhead, and you basically have a grill on the front and usually a grill on the bottom for a return. But yeah, that is another option.
Yep.
Not as popular, but it is an option.
Tim, I don't think you showed us a slide of it, but we're used to split systems with the indoor fan unit up high on the wall, but there are also ones that sit down at floor level, which means that they're not blowing cold air from above; they're blowing from lower down. So sometimes that can be a solution for you as well. So you maybe don't have the big ugly thing up high on the wall. You've got maybe a smaller box sitting lower down on the floor.
Yeah, it can be really good for houses with high ceilings, Russell. So obviously hot air rises, and if it's coming out at a high point and it's a high ceiling and going even higher, it may not be as effective. So it's generally called a floor console that's installed on the ground and looks not too dissimilar from the old wall heaters that we know and don't love.
Yep.
But the idea is that that heat will then start lower and you'll get a bit more use from it before it rises too high.
Yep. Okay, there's a mechanical question Mary's asking about what do you do with ducts after if you've removed gas ducted either from ceiling or floors? What do you do about fixing it up? Obviously, well, from my perspective, if you've had ceiling-based heating and cooling and you're using sealing up those ducts, that's quite easy to get a plaster in and then just repaint the white. floor ducts can be a little bit more problematic because you might have carpets in some rooms and tiles in some rooms and wooden floors, and they're a bit more problematic, and you need to get some flooring people in there to help you. So there's certainly the aesthetic side of it. The mechanical side of filling it up with another piece of wood or some baffle is pretty straightforward. It's more a matter of what do I do with this hole in my carpet, or this hole where the tiles don't go anymore.
Yeah, at a minimum, Russell, you want to insulate. So you want to make sure that the old area, the old vent, is insulated both sort of inside and out as much as you can, so that you don't just have this cold draft coming straight through the old vent.
Right. Okay, well, I think that that pretty much covers off most of the questions that we haven't answered beforehand. And unless, Tony, you've been sitting there monitoring, is there anything in the list that I've missed that we should cover off? Or perhaps something else that I've stalled and said, hey, let Drew answer that. Otherwise, I think we might be done. So at that point, if we can have the next slide, please. Oops, you're going backwards rather than forwards. More, one more. There we go. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Tim and Drew for helping us out tonight with their presentations, all the work that's gone behind to set it up. And our lovely neighbours. Oh dear, we've got an American neighbour there without a U in the neighbour. How did that happen? Sorry, one of my pet peeves. So thanks, Jenny, Susan, and Richard for your insights. I think having householder experience is always a good bonus to add on top of the tech experts. So we've got a couple of ads coming up. Next, please. Interestingly, Rewiring Australia, one of our partners in electrification, is just about to release a new chat box. So if I assume a lot of you will have heard of Saul Griffith, who's a bit of an electrification and energy guru. Rewiring Australia has put his head into a box, and we now have this system called Electric Saul, which is we think, Electrify Burundara, we think it's a great tool that's going to be a good help for helping people along their electrification journey by being able to talk to Electric Saul and help answer some of the curly questions. If we didn't have the expertise of Tim and Drew on board here, I have no doubt that a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight, Electric Saul is able to answer. So look forward to that very soon. Keep an eye on the Electrify Burundara site to find out when it becomes available. Next, please. And speaking about Electrify Burundara, we are on the countdown to October 11 to our Electrify Your Life Expo, which is coming up at Hawthorn Town Hall. Same place, same bat channel, etc. There's a QR code there for you to get your early registrations in. Tim will be there as a stall. We've got a range of top-notch speakers, technical experts, as well as our Ask Me Anything crew to help answer any of your questions. So come along and any questions that we didn't hear handled tonight, we might be able to handle them there. So come along, be a great day at Hawthorn Arts Centre. Next slide, please, and last slide, I think. Electrify Burundara is trying to find out more about what you, our community, think about electrification, helping us understand where you are on your journey, what's stopping you, what's the barriers, and what help that a group like Electrify Burundara can provide to help you along your way. So QR code there for a survey which I think probably should take you 3 or 4, 5 minutes to fill out, and that will be very helpful for us to be able to plan our programs better going forward. So, as far as I'm aware, that is the end of the program for tonight. Unless anyone else in the other panelists have got anything they would like to add, I'd like to thank them all again. Thanks for the team putting all of this together. Thanks for Drew. I'm about to guinea pig. Drew's going to come out and crawl underneath my house himself in a few weeks' time and replace my gas ducted with electric. So we'll run another webinar, and I'll be one of the used experienced people to tell you all about it. So with that, thank you everyone. It's been a great night. Cheers.
Thanks everybody.